She had everything the camera could capture. But behind the frame, silence was her survival. Natalie Wood, America's darling, the child star who grew into a woman. Audiences never stopped watching. She lived in the glow of flashbulbs, but her story ended where light met dark water. One November night off Catalina Island changed everything. For decades, Hollywood whispered, was it an accident or something no one dared to name? The truth hid in the ripples, waiting to surface. She was born Natalia Nikolaevna Zakharenko on July 20, 1938, in San Francisco, to Russian immigrant parents who fled the revolution. Her mother, Maria, was convinced destiny could be bent by will. She took her tiny daughter to studio gates, whispering to strangers that this girl would be famous one day. By the time Natalie was 5, that prophecy had begun to come true. A casting agent spotted her on a film set, and within a week, she was cast in Happy Land 1943. The camera adored her, and her mother knew it. But Maria's ambitions carried a darker cost. She was controlling, superstitious, and ruled the household with fear. She allegedly once consulted a psychic who predicted that Natalie would die in dark water. From that day forward, water became both a symbol and a shadow in her life. When Natalie was offered swimming lessons, her mother refused. "You must never go into the deep," she warned. Natalie internalized that terror, and it followed her all her life. Her first major success came in Tomorrow is Forever, 1946, opposite Orson Welles and Claudette Colbert. Even as a child, Natalie had emotional precision beyond her years. Directors remarked on how she could cry on cue sometimes by recalling her mother's punishments. But Welles later said she was a professional actress before she was 10. That professionalism, though, came from survival, not freedom. At 9, she became a national sweetheart in Miracle on 34th Street, 1947. America saw innocence, purity, the embodiment of post-war optimism. Few saw the exhaustion behind the smile. Maria demanded perfection if Natalie stumbled on a line. She was berated for hours. Studio executives noticed the control but found it convenient. A disciplined child meant easier shoots. The system rewarded obedience. As adolescence arrived, Natalie found herself trapped between two worlds: the eternal child Hollywood adored and the young woman it didn't know how to market. Studios struggled to transition child stars into adult roles. Many were discarded. Natalie refused to vanish. She pushed for parts with emotional depth, and at 16, she landed Rebel Without a Cause 1955. It was the turning point. Working with James Dean and Sal Mineo introduced her to a generation of method actors seeking authenticity, not glamour. She felt seen for the first time not as a product, but as a person. On set, Dean called her the mystery girl. Their chemistry was electric, and their friendship intimate. The role earned her an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actress. Suddenly, she wasn't just a child star, she was a serious actress. But that recognition came with new pressures. Warner Brothers began marketing her as the ideal teenager, beautiful, modern, yet innocent. Publicists arranged photo shoots that contrasted rebellion and propriety, jeans and pearls, motorcycles and lipstick. The image sold millions of magazines, but Natalie felt trapped again, this time by her own success. Then came Robert Wagner. She met him in 1956 on the 20th Century Fox lot. He was 5 years older, charming, impeccably dressed, and already a heartthrob. To the public, they seemed like destiny itself. The perfect mid-century couple. They married the following year in a lavish ceremony, but perfection, like film stock, could be easily overexposed. Their marriage coincided with Natalie's most prolific years. Between 1958 and 1963, she starred in All the Fine Young Cannibals, West Side Story, and Splendor in the Grass. Critics praised her for emotional truth. Audiences saw her as the embodiment of modern femininity, vulnerable yet resilient. Behind the glamour, though, the marriage was crumbling. Wagner's career slowed while hers soared. Friends later recalled his unease about being Mr. Natalie Wood. In 1961, while filming Splendor in the Grass with Warren Beatty, rumors of an affair circulated. Whether true or not, they wounded Wagner deeply. Natalie, tired of the jealousy, filed for divorce in 1962. It was scandalous, a young Catholic woman leaving her husband at the height of her fame. The studio urged her to keep quiet. She did, but her silence spoke volumes. After the divorce, she dated high-profile men Frank Sinatra, Henry Jaglom, Richard Gregson, but none filled the void. Her acting choices reflected that restlessness. In Gypsy 1962 and Love with the Proper Stranger 1963, she explored themes of control and identity, often mirroring her own inner struggle. She earned 3 Oscar nominations before turning 26. Yet by the late 1960s, the roles dwindled. The youth revolution had arrived, and Hollywood was shifting toward edgier counterculture stories. Natalie, refined, classic, emblematic of another era, was seen as too polished, too poised. She married Richard Gregson in 1969, seeking stability. They had a daughter, Natasha, in 1970. For a moment, it seemed she had found peace. But when she discovered Gregson's affair with her secretary, it shattered her trust again. Friends said she sobbed for days, repeating, "I believed him completely." In 1972, against all expectations, she reconciled with Robert Wagner. They remarried that same year. Publicly, it was a love story reborn. Privately, history repeated itself. Their second marriage oscillated between tenderness and tension. They had a daughter together, Courtney, in 1974, and Natalie took a break from film to raise her children. She tried television, producing The Cracker Factory and From Here to Eternity, both earning acclaim. Still, she yearned for cinematic relevance. The 1980s loomed, and she wanted a comeback that mattered. That opportunity came with Brainstorm 1981, a science fiction drama co-starring Christopher Walken. It was meant to reintroduce her as a mature actress, capable of complex, cerebral roles. But during production, tabloids focused less on her performance and more on her rumored closeness with Walken. According to crew members, Wagner visited the set often, watchful, uneasy. One insider recalled that jealousy was thick enough to feel. Thanksgiving weekend, November 1981. Natalie, Wagner, Walken, and yacht captain Dennis Davern boarded the Splendor for a short holiday trip near Catalina Island. They dined, drank, and according to all accounts, argued. Davern would later tell investigators that tension flared between Wagner and Walken over Natalie's career ambitions. Walken allegedly defended her independence. Wagner, by Davern's account, saw it as a threat. What happened next remains uncertain. Around midnight, Natalie vanished. By dawn, her body was discovered floating face down in the water, about a mile from the yacht. She was wearing a flannel nightgown, socks, and a red down jacket. The dinghy was found beached nearby. The official report called it accidental drowning. Wagner and Walken were questioned but not charged. Yet inconsistencies nagged at investigators. Why were there fresh bruises on her arms and legs? Why was the dinghy's ignition off? Why did no one hear a splash? For decades, the case seemed closed, but the rumors refused to die. Hollywood mourned her as it always mourned its icons, with flowers, headlines, and silence. At her funeral, held at Westwood Memorial Park, the A-list lined the pews. Sinatra, Peck, Taylor, Beatty. Elizabeth Taylor reportedly wept uncontrollably, whispering, "She never stood a chance." Wagner stood rigid beside the coffin, grief carved into control. The cameras caught every angle. In the years following her death, stories emerged, some tender, some troubling. Dennis Davern, once loyal to Wagner, began giving interviews suggesting the official version wasn't true. In his 2009 book, Goodbye Natalie, Goodbye Splendor, he claimed he had lied to police under pressure. He described hearing a violent argument, then silence, then Wagner allegedly telling him, "She's gone. She must have left on the dinghy." Davern admitted he was afraid. The story reignited public obsession. In 2011, the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department reopened the case. New witnesses came forward, boaters who heard screams that night, others who saw a woman's body floating in darkness. Forensic specialists reviewed the autopsy and noted bruising patterns inconsistent with simple drowning. In 2012, the cause of death was changed to drowning and other undetermined factors. By 2018, Wagner was publicly named a person of interest. Detectives requested interviews. He declined. His spokesperson insisted he had cooperated fully in the past. Yet the mystery persisted. Talk shows debated it. True crime podcasts dissected every timeline. Some painted him as guilty, others as grieving. No charges were filed, but the cultural verdict remained suspended. Amid the noise, Natalie's daughters sought to reclaim her humanity. Natasha Gregson Wagner, now an actress herself, produced the 2020 HBO documentary Natalie Wood, What Remains Behind. It reframed her mother's story not as a whodunit, but as a life worth remembering. Robert Wagner participated, facing the camera for the first time to speak about the night. "We were both drunk," he said quietly. There was no fight, just confusion. I would have done anything to protect her. His words didn't erase doubt, but they revealed decades of unresolved grief. The film juxtaposed home videos Natalie laughing in the garden, holding her daughters with footage of breaking news announcing her death. It was devastating and intimate, reminding viewers that behind the headlines was a woman who had spent her life performing emotions others wanted her to feel. Even now, new details surface. In 2021, police confirmed the case remains open, officially classified as suspicious. Investigators maintain that while evidence of foul play is circumstantial, unanswered questions persist. Captain Davern, now elderly, has repeated his story in numerous interviews. He says he still hears her voice over the waves. To understand why her death still grips the world, you have to understand what she symbolized. Natalie Wood embodied the bridge between eras, old Hollywood's controlled glamour and new Hollywood's raw emotional truth. She came of age during a time when actresses were property sold as illusions. She fought to become a producer, to choose her own scripts, to step behind the lens. In the 1970s, that was revolutionary, but every victory came with isolation. Her mother's control had trained her to please. Her marriages taught her to negotiate power quietly. Even her fears, especially of water, were dismissed by those closest to her. In psychological terms, Natalie lived under adaptive compliance, a constant adjusting to survive male authority. What makes her story timeless isn't the mystery of her death, it's the clarity of her struggle. She wanted to belong in an industry that rarely let women own their narratives. When she tried, she was labeled difficult. When she conformed, she was adored. The contradiction broke her long before Catalina Island did. Today, her legacy has shifted. Younger generations discover West Side Story and marvel at her sincerity. Unaware of the pressure she endured, critics revisit Splendor in the Grass and call it one of the first cinematic portraits of mental fragility in post-war America. Her daughter Natasha says her mother's lesson was simple. Live with grace, even when the world misunderstands you. In 2022, nearly 40 years after her death, a Los Angeles Times retrospective described Natalie as the actress who never stopped fighting for control over her image. It's ironic because even now, the final image the world remembers is one she never approved. A red jacket drifting in the Pacific. Yet maybe that's what immortality looks like in Hollywood. The studio machine once built myths. Now audiences search for the human truth behind them. Natalie Wood's story has become both a cautionary tale and a love letter to those who live too brightly for the times they're in. And when you watch her on screen, whether it's the trembling confession in Splendor in the Grass or the desperate courage of Maria in West Side Story, you see a woman who gave everything, even when the world gave little back. Her performances are time capsules of vulnerability, framed forever in Technicolor. So when the waves return her story to us, decade after decade, they remind us what she left behind. Not just mystery, but empathy. A reminder that fame is never the same as safety. That beauty, without freedom, can be its own form of drowning. She feared the water, yet it became her last stage. And maybe, in some tragic poetry, that's how Hollywood keeps its angels half in light, half in shadow, forever beyond reach. If stories like this speak to you, stay with us. Because sometimes the truth isn't lost, it's just waiting for someone brave enough to look beneath the surface.